Hey everybody, welcome to nutrition. So this is chapter 30 in your textbook, basic nutrition we're going to talk about. So let's get started. Hope you're ready. Okay, so nutrition. So when we talk about nutrition, it's the study of nutrients and how the body utilizes nutrients from food for energy, right? And also there's something called Maslow's hierarchy, which I'll talk to you about in a minute, which food is at the base, food, water, basic needs. So in order to live, we need nutrition. And you are what you eat. I can't say this to people enough. If you eat a bad diet, you are going to not feel great. You're going to probably not look great. So let's move forward and talk about what we all can do to eat better. So there's Maslow's hierarchy. So Maslow was a theorist, and his theory was that there are levels to the things that are important to us as human beings. And at the base of this are your physiological needs. In other words, you have to breathe, you need food, you need water, you need shelter, you need clothing, and you need to sleep. And only after those needs are met can you then go on to worry about things like safety, security, love and belonging, self-esteem, and then self-actualization, right? So make sure you know that at the bottom, at the base of the pyramid of Maslow's hierarchy are the physiological needs, okay? So what are nutrients? Nutrients are things that we need in order for our bodies to survive, live, grow, and repair. And so what are the classes of nutrients? When something is highlighted, that means it's important, right? So the classes of nutrients are carbohydrates, lipids, proteins, water, minerals, and vitamins. Then they can be broken down into macro and micronutrients. So the macronutrients are your carbs, your lipids, and proteins because they provide energy. The micronutrients are your vitamins and minerals, and they regulate certain processes in the body. And then there's water, and you need water. You can go without food for a little bit, but you can't go without water, right? Got to have water. So what's a healthy diet look like? So this is the government's My Plate. And it talks about, portions of foods that we all need. So you need a variety of food. You need fruits and vegetables. You need, some types of grains, and you need some dairy, and you need some protein. But the protein should be low in saturated fat and cholesterol. You don't need added sugar. You don't need salt, right? And we'll talk more about what that healthy plate and healthy diet look like. So first, let's talk about the vitamins so that you know the difference between fat soluble and water soluble. The fat soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K. Make sure you know it. A, D, E, and K. These vitamins are fat soluble and they can be stored in the body. Okay, and we'll talk about what each one of them does in a little bit. Water soluble vitamins, all of your B complex vitamins, B1, 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 9, and 12, and then your vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid. These are water soluble. If you have too much, you will just urinate them out. Your kidneys will excrete them. Okay. So here you go. They can be stored in the body, the fat soluble ones, so you shouldn't be taking excessive supplements. The water soluble vitamins, if you take extra, you will excrete them. The exception is B12 because the liver can store B12. So here's a chart that tells you the different food groups and what major vitamins and minerals are contained in them. So it's important to know with a little more specificity. So I'm not going to go over this table, but we're going to talk with more specifics. Okay. So using that My Plate concept is really beneficial when we teach patients because we can help them understand, like, eat more of these fruits and vegetables, eat less of, the sugars and the fatty foods, and variety. You don't even have to eat a great diet, but you have to eat a reasonably good diet. You should be active every day, a little bit, eat in moderation. Balance your caloric intake with what your energy needs are. So if you're sitting all day, you don't need a whole lot of calories, right? And physically active, that's important. Your body needs to move, okay? Sedentary sitting is the new smoking. Harvard Medical School did some research, and they were the first to start this research, and it trickled over to the government, and the Surgeon General wrote a report on it. Smoking is bad for you. We know this. So is sitting. So is being lonely, right? There are some things that are just as bad as smoking for your physiological health. Sitting and leading a sedentary lifestyle and never moving and never sweating can be very detrimental. So we'll talk more about that later too. There's something called dietary reference intakes, DRIs. And really the one I'd like for you to know is the recommended dietary allowance. So the RDAs. When you look on a label on food, it will show you, here's the recommended dietary allowance based on a 2,000 calorie a day diet. Now, not all of us will have a 2,000 calorie a day diet, but it gives you kind of a ballpark, right? So the nurse is preparing an educational session for a client to help the client plan a healthy diet. Which mineral will the nurse point out can be supplied by fruit? Is it iron, potassium, calcium, or magnesium? Just think about bananas, but avocados, there are other sources of potassium, potatoes, oranges, tomatoes, all have potassium. Calcium is in vegetables and dairy. Iron is in grains, vegetables, and protein. Grains and vegetables also give you some magnesium, and we'll explain why these things are important later, okay? Kilocalories and energy. So a calorie is a measurement that specifies how much energy can be produced from a certain food, and that small amount of food. It's also the amount of heat required to raise the temperature of 1 kilogram of water 1 degree Celsius. So here's what I want you to know, that 1 gram of a carb is 4 kilocalories. 1 gram of a fat is 9, and 1 gram of a protein is 4. So remember, 4, 9, 4. Carb, fat, protein. 4, 9, 4. Carb, fat, protein. Okay? Moving on. Let's talk about empty calories. And this is a problem for people. Empty calories are calories that you take in from things that don't really have any nutritional value. Candy, soda, booze, sugar, right? Those things really, you don't need them, right? We don't need alcohol. We don't need soda. They become kind of addictive and habitual over time, and that's not good. And you have to think about your activity level. Again, you shouldn't be sedentary. You need to move. Now, let's break down carbohydrates. Carbs, because they're made of carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen, they're either simple carbs or complex carbs. Remember, they give you 4 calories per gram, and your recommended total percentage in a day is anywhere from 45 to 65%. Why? Because carbs are what our cells use to make adenosine triphosphate, and you'll learn more about that in A&P. Okay, so you must remember, 4 calories per gram, 45 to 65% of your total calories for the day should come from carbs. And here are some sources of carbohydrates. Okay. I'm not going to go through the digestion of carbs just yet, but the basic understanding, just so you kind of have a clue, digestion begins in the mouth, right? When the saliva mixes with whatever you're eating, breaks it down, goes through the esophagus to the stomach. There's pancreatic enzymes that are involved. Your gallbladder can be involved with bile if it's fatty food. And the bottom line is, it's a whole process of digestion, particularly with carbs. Carbs are broken down into glucose, fructose, or galactose, and then they get absorbed into your bloodstream. Okay? What are the good carbs? What are the bad carbs? Simple carbs are the bad carbs, and they're usually white. Go figure. So things like white bread, white rice, white pasta, sugar, white flour, cookies and cakes and those kinds of bad. They get metabolized fast. So think about Halloween. Kids go out, trick or treat, get some candy, eat up all the candy, pure sugar, and and then the next thing you know, right? So simple sugars are short acting. They get metabolized super quick in your body, but they also wear off super quick. They're the bad carbs. Now, the good carbs, the complex carbs, they're the ones that you should be eating, right? They're the ones that are usually brown. Go figure. Starches, dextrin, fructans, glycogen. So in other words, wheat bread, whole grain bread, brown rice as opposed to white rice, right? The things that are brown. And then fiber, which fiber is kind of considered a complex carb, but fiber doesn't get absorbed. Fiber simply moves through your digestive tract, grabs water, and helps keep your feces, your poop soft, makes it easier to go. Okay? So make sure you understand what are simple carbs and what are complex carbs. Simple carbs get metabolized quickly. They're the white ones, they're the bad carbs. Complex carbs keep your blood sugar nice and stable over a lengthy period of time. And that's what we want. And this is not just for people with diabetes. This is for healthy people to keep you healthy. Well, then we have fats. Lipids are fats. And lipids, the function of lipids, you need fat, right? You need fat. Not a lot. Recommended for the day is about 20 to 35%, depending on your energy level. 9 calories per gram. And fat can provide energy, but excess fat gets stored as adipose tissue, right? But we need it. It helps conserve body heat. It helps keep our skin healthy with fatty acids, helps nerve tissue. We have a fat layer that protects our kidneys like shock absorbers and our flank area. All important, right? Need some, but there are good fats and bad fats, right? So let's talk about that. Fatty acids, you have saturated, unsaturated, monounsaturated, polyunsaturated. Saturated fats, all I can say to you is they're solid at room temperature. When you cook bacon in a pan and you leave that pan sit on the stove, and a half hour later, you go back in the kitchen, what's up with the grease? It's solidified. Picture that inside your arteries. For real. Saturated fats are solid at room temperature, and they're animal fats usually, right? Some plant fats, but the big ones are the animal fats, and they're not good for you. Surprise, they're not good for you. They build up in your arteries and contribute to cardiovascular disease, particularly atherosclerotic cardiovascular disease, which is where inside your artery, right, there's an opening, right? Let's do this. But then plaque builds up from the fat, all that excess saturated fat. And instead of the opening being this big, it's now this big. And it's hard for the blood to get through, okay? It's important to remember. Now, the unsaturated fats, they're usually soft or liquid at room temperature. Think about, poultry, freshwater fish, like, those kinds of things, salmon, right? Monounsaturated fats, olive oil, which is the best, right? Polyunsaturated or your corn oil, sunflower, soybean, safflower oil. So, and then there are other fatty acids. You don't need to know all of them, but I will tell you this. The fatty fish, like salmon, very, very good for omega-3 fatty acid, which is good for cardiac. Other fish, or I should say shellfish, things like lobster, scallops, mussels, oysters, clams, shrimp, loaded with cholesterol. Not good for you. Tastes delicious, but not good for you. So cholesterol, your total cholesterol, when we check your blood, should be less than 200. Okay, make sure you know that. That's your first lab value. Total cholesterol less than 200. Cholesterol is only found in animal tissues, but you need some to make certain hormones, vitamin D and bile. So there's there's different types of cholesterol, more than 2, but we're just going to talk about the 2. High density lipoprotein, HDL, is the good cholesterol. And that number should be greater than 60. Okay. It's good for you. This is the one that protects your arteries. So it lowers your total cholesterol, lowers your risk for heart disease. Exercise makes it increase. Smoking cessation is absolutely healthy for you, can help it increase. But this is the good one. So remember, H, high density, healthy. HDL is the good one, should be greater than 60. The bad one is your LDL, your low density lipoprotein, and that should be less than 100. This is the one that is notorious, comes from usually saturated fats, and that's the one that lines your arteries with that gunk that I talked about earlier. So LDL bad, HDL good. HDL, H stands for healthy. Remember that. And remember the numbers, 200, less or greater than 60, less than 100 for these two. Protein. You need protein. Protein are made up of amino acids. We're not going to get into the chemical compounds of them, but we need them to repair body constituents, maintain fluid balance, right? In our blood, in our body. It's a key component of our immune system, what keeps us healthy. And we can take protein and we can convert it to glucose. Our body can. Amazing. and we can use it to make energy. Okay? And we also need protein to produce certain hormones and enzymes that we need, because every second of every minute of every hour of every day, there are thousands of things happening inside of our body that we're just completely unaware of. It's amazing. It's amazing. What are the sources of protein? Your best source of protein are animal products. Remember that. Animal products. You get the biggest bang for your buck, okay? 16 chain amino acids, complete proteins come from animals, animal products, and soybeans, which is what they use to make tofu, okay? So meat, fish, poultry, eggs, milk, cheese, and then the incomplete proteins, dried beans, peas, peanut butter, nuts, and then certain breads and cereals that are fortified, okay? So you need protein. I'm not going to go through all the different amino acids, but you do need to know the difference between a complete and an incomplete protein. A complete protein, high quality protein, gives us all the amino acids we need to live. Like I said, animals are animal products and soybeans. Make sure you know this. Incomplete proteins, they don't have enough of the essential amino acids. These are usually the ones we get from plants, right? So they're incomplete. They're still good, but they're not everything in one. You know, what I can get from one burger, you need to eat a lot of kale. And you still aren't going to get a complete protein the way you are from an animal product. Remember this. And then vegan, vegetarian. So a vegan, no animals or animal products, none, zero, zilch, none. A lacto-vegetarian, vegetarian, but they'll drink milk. Ovo-vegetarian, vegetarian, but they're okay with eggs. An ovo-lacto-vegetarian is a vegetarian, but they're okay with milk and eggs, right? And a vegan won't do any of that. So make sure you understand that concept, okay? All righty, moving forward. A strict vegetarian diet lacks amino acids. Well, that's not true, right? That's false, because they're still getting amino acids, but they're just getting them from different sources. Water. 60% of our body, give or take, is water. We lose water every day just by living, right? Lost fluid every day must be replaced. A healthy adult should drink about 2,500 to 3,500 milliliters of water a day. Think about it like this. A typical bottle of water is about 500 mils. You need about 5 of those. Are you drinking 5? Think about it. Now we're going to move on to minerals. You need minerals for your bones, your teeth, your muscles, and acid-base balance and other things. So let's talk about the minerals. Electrolytes are types of minerals, okay? We need them. We need them. We need them. The major electrolytes you need to know: sodium, potassium, chloride, magnesium, calcium, and phosphorus. They are your major electrolytes, okay? And here I've put a nice little chart. Sodium is represented as Na with a plus sign. If you have hyper or hyponatremia, high or low salt in your body. Potassium is a K with a positive sign. Hyper or hypokalemia, referring to potassium, either high or low. Magnesium is Mg with a plus sign, hyper or hypomagnesemia. Calcium, Ca with a plus sign, hyper or hypocalcemia. Don't confuse potassium, K with a plus sign after it, with vitamin K. Two different things. Two different things, okay? Sodium level should be 135 to 145. If you have a deficiency in sodium, you're going to be confused, real confused, dizzy, right? Lethargic. I will tell you this, and it's even on this slide. Most people in this country eat way too much salt. Salt is the devil. Okay? Way too much salt. Your sodium level in your blood should be 135 to 145. It's highlighted, know it. Okay? Potassium, 3.5 to 5.0. Let me put a plus sign after that so we don't get confused. That's the serum level for potassium. When you think potassium, you think muscle, right? Just remember muscle, because the big thing with potassium, if it's too high or too low, it's going to mess with your heart, right? Myocardial infarction. You don't want that. Potassium. Here's how you remember what foods have potassium. Write the word potassium. Potatoes and pork, oranges, tomatoes, avocados, strawberries, spinach, fish, muskmelon, cantaloupes, honeydews, mushrooms, also carrots, raisins, and bananas. But everybody knows bananas. If you get a question, the answer is not going to be bananas. Chloride, I'm not going to talk too much about chloride. Most of the time that comes from salt. Very unusual to have a deficiency or excess of chloride. Magnesium, need to know. When you think mag, think nerves. Magnesium, nerves. And I'm not going to give you any more serum blood levels because that's enough for one day, right? But when you think magnesium, I'm going to think nerves, seizures, convulsions, right? Or a completely depressed nervous system response, like a rag doll, okay? Calcium, you think calcium, you think nerves. So calcium and magnesium in the blood, think nerves. Potassium and sodium in the blood, think muscle. And that, you'll see, you're going to need that for the rest of your career, okay? So calcium, if you are deficient in calcium, osteoporosis, brittle bone syndrome, you don't want that. It's a very complicated process by which calcium is in your bones or in your blood. Your parathyroid glands control calcitonin. Calcitonin regulates where the calcium goes. Is it in your bones? Is it in your blood? How do we balance it? So just know that calcium in your bones is about bone strength, but calcium in your blood, nerves. Calcium, nerves, and magnesium, nerves. And you need vitamin D and phosphorus to help your body absorb calcium. That's also important. Phosphorus, I'm not going to get into this right now. You don't need to know it's sulfur also. Your trace minerals. You only need teeny tiny bits of these, but you need iron, iodine, and zinc. You need the others too, but let's just talk about those three, okay? Because you can't remember everything, okay? I'm going to tell you what's important for you to know. Okay, so iron, also called ferritin or ferrous sulfate, represented as an Fe, okay? That is what clings to red blood cells and turns them into hemoglobin and transports oxygen through your blood. You are dead without it, okay? Dead without it. So, when you're deficient in iron, you're not going to have enough red blood cells, so you're going to be anemic, right? And all these things are signs of anemia, right? Impaired immune function, decreased work capacity. In other words, you're tired, pathetic, you don't care, you're lethargic, you're tired, fatigue, you're tired. Itchy skin, pale nail beds and eye membranes. Your conjunctiva will be pale. Gums will get pale, right? You're cold, your skin will be pale. All signs of anemia. We're going to say equals anemia, okay? Very unusual to be toxic. So just understand the deficiency of iron will result in anemia. And these are the symptoms, okay? Okay. Iodine. You need iodine. I'm only going to talk about it for a minute, only because when we get to endocrine down the road, it's a component of our thyroid hormone that regulates our metabolic rate and our growth and development, right? So too much iodine, you'll have a goiter. You'll talk about that stuff when we get to med-surg. Zinc, just going to talk about the tissue growth and wound healing and immune. You need some zinc. And the big thing is to help your skin and tissue regrow and heal and to help your immune system. Don't worry about deficiency or toxicity. If it's highlighted, that's what you need to know. Don't worry about selenium or copper or manganese. Fluoride. Everybody knows fluoride. Your teeth, right? It helps promote resistance to dental decay. So you don't get caries or cavities. Okay. So you need some fluoride. Don't worry about chromium. Okay. Is this statement true or false? Populations who have a high sodium intake are at greater risk for hypertension and cardiovascular disease. That would be a true. Okay. Absolutely true. High sodium increases the risk of osteoporosis, and it's bad. It's loaded in lunch meat and fast foods and processed foods and those kinds of things. Bad. Okay. All right. We're going to pause because this is enough for one lecture. Let you absorb this. And then there's going to be a part 2. So we're letting off at slide 56, where we're going to start vitamins in a little bit. So if you have any questions about what was already covered, Now is the time to talk about it. Okay. And I'll see you with the next video. And okay.